Hey guys, so I didn't learn to solder until I was older. I don't know, I never had any projects that needed to be soldered. But now that I'm in a profession that actually uses soldered bits quite a bit, I learned how to do it myself just from YouTube videos. But I thought it might be helpful in case you're in, the need to solder, how to get that done. So first thing you need is, of course, a soldering set of some kind. This one was actually pretty cheap on Amazon, and I've added some things to it, electrical tape and, X-Acto knife and some things. But the main part that you'll need is a soldering iron with a good tip. Make sure it has a good tip. Mine came with a whole set of tips. For what we're going to do today, this one will probably work, but we might want to use one that's a little more exact. So slip that one back on. Couple those back together. Awesome. Now, there is a temperature gauge, varying a little dial right here. It depends on what kind of solder you have. Mine goes all the way down to 200 degrees, all the way up to 450 degrees. I've found that if I'm lower than about 350, maybe 400, I'm not soldering at all. It's just kind of warming up. It's not actually binding or anything. So usually about 400, I'll leave it there. Hopefully yours also came with a nice little stand. Mine has a little stand. You get the piece wet right there. And, it's good to have a work surface. My really nice soldering work surface, I have one at the school. I have another one downstairs. But I figured, hey, let's just kind of go with what we have. I've got this nice box here, and I figure let's work on this surface so that we're not burning through the table or anything crazy like that. Have also a good ventilated area, so if you don't have an open window nearby or a fan or something, or both, or you're outside. I've soldered many things outside, either in the garage or outside, and that has worked really well. So I've got my power here, and I'm going to plug that in, and it also has a little switch. Looks like the switch is already done. So we're waiting for this thing to come up to temperature. It does take a while, so have that be one of your first items of business. The project today, I ordered this cable on Amazon. It's kind of an odd cable. This is a 3-pin XLR. I thought I was ordering the female, but it ended up this was the male version. Not to get too technical on the birds and the bees or anything. And it's weird because this is a 3-prong connector. Usually it's a ground, the signal, and then the out of phase version of the signal to make it balanced, a balanced connection. And then this one is just a tip and a sleeve, that common 1/4 inch, you plug a guitar into an amp or something. And I just thought that was peculiar. I kind of bought it to see, like, I needed this exact thing, well, with the female connector instead of the male. But I also wanted to see kind of what connected these two, because this is 2 connections, tip and sleeve, and then this is 3. So I'm wondering what's going on. I'd love to take this apart and find out. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm also going to take, speaking of that soldering part, I'm going to take this female end off of just a little patch cable, and I am going to put it onto, instead of where this male connector is, we'll make it a female connector. I can smell that this thing is getting hot, so that's good. There's a little indicator right here. It says it's on and working. I wouldn't touch anything higher than this or else you're going to get burned. I brought a little bit of water, number one, to wet my whistle, so to say, but also to get this little sponge wet. Okay, let's take these things apart and see what makes them tick. I brought a pencil. I also brought, in case there's any little spare parts that need to get held together, I also have my little magnetic tray. I like using that quite a bit. They were only $1 at Harbor Freight this week, so I actually bought a new one. Okay, let's do it. So it looks to me like all 3 of these are connected to something, but it does also look like the copper connecting this one and this one are touching each other, so I am willing to say that they are probably just crossed. I also brought my pencil so we can write this down. Usually on the inside of an XLR connector, a 3-pin or a 5-pin or whichever one, it's labeled 1, 2, and 3, and that's pretty universal. So if you draw out a sketch of what you're seeing, then it helps you kind of make sense of it. All right, there's the 3 of them, and that is number 1. That is number 2. That is number 3. All right, perfect. I've also got here my multimeter. And boy, is this thing helpful. Let's turn this on, and we'll go to connectivity. And you'll see if they connect, they'll make a terrible noise like that. And let's just take each of these and see if we can't make that noise. So we'll put it up against the sleeve. And then let's test it on this one. Sure enough, the sleeve is making a noise. It's connected to both 1 and 3. Is that what I have? Yep, 1 and 3. Okay, so on my little marker here, I'm going to mark, here's 1 and 3. And then just to make sure, I think it's already there, but let's check it. We'll go, is it on number 1? It's on number 1. Number 2, nope, it's on number 2. Awesome. Okay, so that, just so we know, that is the tip, and that is the sleeve, and that is also the sleeve. Okay, how are we doing? Nice and hot. If you're not sure if it's hot, don't touch it to find out. You'll just get burned. Sometimes I'll stick it into this little sponge. It gives you a nice little melty sizzle. That means it's ready. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to remove the parts off of this one, and then maybe we'll have this one ready first. So let's take this guy off. And sure enough, this one is labeled 1, 3, 2. So they're backwards, right? And of course that makes sense because when the male side goes back to the female side, they want to be mirror image of each other. So that makes sense. Just so we don't forget, let's put that, here's the male side, here's the female side, and we've got 2 over here. All right, dyslexia is a killer, so just make sure. We want this to be connected to tip, this one to sleeve, and this one to sleeve. Awesome. Another thing I forgot to mention is as you're soldering, you definitely want some kind of clamping mechanism. I used to have a nice clamp that actually held things in place, but over time it just wore out and kind of broke. I am now in the fashion of making kind of jury-rigged things that hold things together. So let's take my DIY clamp holder here. Let's see, that one's kind of crossing each other. I like that. So that we can have sort of an extra hand. There we go. And what we're trying to do is just remove this one. This is the female. We're trying to remove this one from its... Okay, that one came out real easy. Some are a little more tricky to remove sometimes. That's the female connector. And we actually don't need the wire from this anymore, but we do need the sheath cover. And we need this. This is the opposite end. This one's going to go right into there. And sometimes I'll put them together too, just to kind of not forget all the parts that went together with one. Now we need to take off this one. 1 and 3, yep, 1 and 3 are the sheath. So that is the copper, bare copper. And then this one, number 2, the one that goes to the tip, that's probably a ground. Usually the tip is ground. And that has a coating, so I'll just say coated. Great. If you need to kind of reorient too, that's all right. Use tools so you don't get burned. These metal pieces do heat up quite a bit. Let's clean that up a little bit. Okay. So there's the male end. Let's take all the other pieces off the male end. Okay, and then do this in the right order. It's not going to work. Here is the female end. We're going to put the female cover in first. Should just slide right through, and we'll get that well out of the way. And this usually has an opening. Here's the opening. We'll get that in there. When it comes time, we'll just slide that one up and it will match perfectly with this. Okay. So here's my coated, and according to my chart here, coated is going to go to number 2 on the female end. So here's the female part. It's going to go right here to the one on the right. Yep. So on this side it's one on the left. I turn it, it's on the right. Don't let dyslexia get the better of you. Now, you want plenty of solder on there, and you actually want to solder, you want to apply solder to the bare wire first, and then you're going to apply it to the joint. So first, let's apply new solder. I've got my soldering coil right here. This is standard tin solder. And the way you're going to do it is you will heat it and apply it. Okay, that looks good. You don't want too much slag on there, or else it'll just be kind of a mess all over this thing. Let's put this female end. Remember, we've got 1, 2, and 3. 3 is on the bottom. Just make sure we've got 1 and 2. Remember, I said 2 is on the right. Okay, and I sort of keep repeating that to myself just so I don't forget. And you know, it's just sometimes you think, oh man, which one was it? Well, you've got it practically memorized now. And I want to get it so that the two are basically touching each other, so that I don't even have to hold this in place very much. It just kind of happens. All right, now that is just resting right on top. Now it does take a sec for that thing to apply and harden. Just give it a good test. It should, with a little persuasion, it shouldn't come out. If it does come out, then maybe it hasn't bound. It hasn't bound to the metal yet. Okay, so let's find the next one. it's hardened. Give it a little test pull. It is firmly in place. So is this one. Okay, so now let's turn it so we can see this one a little better. Okay, that hardened up nicely. Again, give it a test. That's not going anywhere. Okay, so we'll remove this, and then remember we had that sheath cover. We could, just in case you want to check it first. Let's test it with the multimeter, just to make sure. Just so we don't have our wires crossed, so to say. Stick that one in. Nothing here. Oh, and the sheath works. How about number 3? Nothing here, and the sheath works. Number 2 works on the tip, not on the sleeve. Perfect. Then we'll slide this one up. There was one time, just once, that I forgot to put this on first. I was solder happy, so I did the soldering joints first, and I forgot to put the backing on, and you can't put the backing on after, so I had to undo the joints that I had in there. Wasn't super happy about that. All right, and then I've got my piece in here. Now this piece also has kind of the ejector button. I'll make sure the ejector button is down. There we go. And then as we tighten this, kind of screws into place. Okay, make sure the button works, looks good. And I just, out of paranoia's sake, why don't we test it again? As you plug that thing in, it might get a little bit, jostled around or twisted or things. So let's put our multimeter back to connectivity to be sure. Here's the tip. Perfect. Okay, this cable is ready. Awesome. And that's how we do a soldering joint. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to solder. It's something that I learned kind of by myself. I would have loved to know this for actually a couple of things that I'm like, man, I shouldn't have thrown that cable away. I could have just soldered it. I'm no expert. I was self-taught. I'm just passing on the knowledge that I know. If you found this helpful, give it a like. I will check you next time. We'll have some other fun tutorial or video or tour or who knows what. This is kind of fun. I've been making these videos. This is number 6. It's been almost a full week since the announcement that we would not be going back to school until May 1st. And I hope to make a video at least until May 1st. So check back in here. I have a playlist of all of these different videos that you might be interested in. You guys are awesome. Thanks for all you do. Hang in there. This is a weird time, very tough time. Most of us, this totally took a toll on us. I would say, just like I've been preaching since the beginning of this crazy thing, don't let the anxiety get to you, right? Have a routine. Establish a good routine and keep maybe parts of your routine. I was just barely talking to my brother-in-law and his wife, and I was just saying, every morning I get up at the same time. My alarm still goes off. I'm not just like waking up like a zombie and then it's like I don't even know what day it is. I get up, I shower, I take the dog for a walk. Instead of walking to work, I take the dog for a walk. It's like the equivalent, or it feels like it is. It's just kind of like a healthy replacement for that thing that was already happening in my routine, right? The third thing, be willing to break your routine too. Do something unusual, out of the ordinary, right? Break up the monotony. What am I doing? I'm doing random videos on YouTube for you guys. Hopefully you're enjoying these. And don't let social distancing limit your social connections. Get connected with people, right? Maybe physically we have to be apart, but that doesn't mean that you have to isolate yourself. Stay connected. Thanks for watching this video. I'll have some more. And if you think of anything you want to see in these videos, let me know. You guys are awesome. Stay well, stay safe. I'll check you on the next one.